bank of cash or a retirement fund, you can absolutely go buy good businesses that will cash flow.
The outsized risk of being an entrepreneur gives you the outsized return. So, I mean, you have the downside of that your floor is pretty much gone.
How hard or how little he worked determined, everything. And so growing up, I would watch him golf all summer long. I wanted to get after it. I wanted to go build a national brand. It's going to take a lot of horsepower, a lot of capital to do it.
Almost certain you couldn't have done it alone, right? Like, how did you navigate this? Maybe make it granularly, like through the relationships.
No way can a broker or a Google search adequately allow you to vet those and figure out what's the right fit for me. A bank of cash or a retirement fund, you can absolutely go buy good businesses that will cash flow.
All right, Alex, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. We're excited to have you on the show, man. You came highly recommended to us. And as Ryan and I navigate the seas of being an entrepreneur, I figured talking to somebody else who's done it, not just once, but multiple times, would be awesome. So we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped to be here, Corey, and look forward to getting into all things entrepreneurship, real estate, side hustles, franchising, you name it. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, man. So why don't you take us back a little bit here? We just kind of chatted pre-recording. We're the same age, and you've had this entrepreneurial venture like in the early stages of your life, 20s and 30s, right? 20s and early 30s. So LaundroLab and 2U Laundry were like how you're entry way into the the entrepreneurial world. So like, talk to me about in your head how you realized that entrepreneurship was going to be a thing for you, because I see that you worked for the Big Four. Like, that's out the gate. You weren't doing something specifically entrepreneurial. I'm curious, like, when that came to be and when you decided, like, maybe this, Big Four accounting or the consulting is not really for me.
Yeah, I came out of the womb ready to be an entrepreneur. No, I'm kidding. I think growing up is where I started to get some of that inspiration. My dad was a financial advisor for AXA Equitable, and so while he wasn't like a traditional like small business owner, he was very entrepreneurial in the sense that he ate what he killed. I mean, 100% commission. Having to build a book of business, how hard or how little he worked determined, everything. And so growing up, I would watch him golf all summer long and then bust his ass, fall through spring. And I remember looking at him compared to my other friends' parents and be like, you golf a lot. How are you able to do this? And so early on, he taught me, he's like, look, you can either work for someone else, you can work for yourself, which is what I do, or you can have people working for you. And he's like, you typically want to be in the second or the third rung. You don't really want to be working for someone else. You want people either working for you or you working for yourself. And that just opened my eyes up to this idea that there's another path after college that doesn't need to be going to go work for a Fortune 500 company or, climbing the corporate ladder. And so that was always in the back of my head. And so when I got to college, my freshman year, I actually ended up working for a student-run laundry and dry cleaning pickup and delivery startup that started as a classroom project. So that's where I really got into it. I saw what they were doing. I was like, look, they're going to graduate. I want to buy their business and learn how to run a business and make some money in the process, but really get my hands on to something entrepreneurial. And so when they were graduating, I was like, I want to buy this business from you guys. Don't have any idea what I'm doing, but I want to figure this out. And so those seniors were graduating. They were looking for like 30 grand, because it was, again, small laundry and dry cleaning class project side hustle thing. I was like, 30 grand, that's the most money in the world. I've never, I have $2 grand saved up. I don't know if I can figure this out. So long story short, ended up buying that business with two other partners. We did an earnout. I had to learn what an earnout was. I had to learn what a discounted cash flow analysis was. I was 18 years old to figure this out. So we ended up buying that business. We run it. We grew it 10x from where it was when we bought it, sold it for 10x what we bought it for when we graduated. And I learned more doing that than any classroom project I took at, any class I took at Wake. And so then, as you mentioned, I worked for Ernst & Young after I graduated as a, I think like my parents probably expected that of me. Society expected that of me. It was like, go get your big boy job. And so I sold the laundry thing. I went and did that, and I hated it. Like after getting that taste.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all that somebody who's like worked their way into the entrepreneurial world hated the structure and the corporate ladder and all the things that come along with like, having to work your way up, and like, I'm not exactly the best person to talk to about this because I didn't last very long in corporate America either. But I'm very curious about LaundroLab and To You Laundry. Like, just tell me about like what those companies actually do, and then how you figured out a way to scale them.
Yeah, so the where I got into 2U Laundry and Laundry Lab was I was at EY, a year and a half, not super thrilled with it, and I saw all these Uber for X businesses pop up, like Instacart and Shipt and Wag and Rover, and I was like, someone's going to do this for laundry and dry cleaning. I'm going to hate myself if it's not me. I did this in college. I already learned some of it. And so I started a company, 2U Laundry in January of 16, thinking instead of college campuses, let's go after the dual income households, the small commercial businesses like gyms and nail salons and dental offices that need laundry and dry cleaning service. So started that business in January of 2016. And then over the course of 8 years, we ended up raising about 33 million in venture capital, started launching a few dozen cities and like really went after it. And out of the gate, we had two paths. It could have been like, hey, this is a lifestyle business or something we scale up over time. I knew I wanted to get after. I wanted to go build a national brand. It's going to take a lot of horsepower, a lot of capital to do it. And I saw what these other Uber for X businesses were doing. And I thought, that's the way. That's the way I got to do it. So we raised some venture, launched a ton of cities, learned a lot in the process. And then in 2018, we started vertically integrating out of necessity. We were doing the laundry out of mom and pop, laundromats, and the issue is those operators don't have experience for the most part running a team of 10 to 15 employees, managing quality at the level that we needed them to. And so we took it in house, originally doing third shift laundry at like 2 a.m. out of other people's laundromats. Like we really scrapped our way, through this thing to the point where we got big enough where we could actually build our own stores. 6,300 square foot McDonald's we ended up buying from McDonald's corporate. So my first real estate deal, I'm 25 years old, is negotiating with McDonald's corporate at the
The
time.
real estate kings, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was a lot.
yeah.
They're shrewd negotiators, and it's why I think they are as good as they are on the real estate side. Thankfully, we had some investors in our corner that had a ton of real estate experience. One of them was the founder of FastMed Urgent Care, the standalone urgent care business, and he was helping us negotiate, go toe to toe with them, and it ended up being a good deal, and it worked. It's worked out phenomenally well. But 2018, vertically integrated, built physical laundromats, and fast forward to a year or two ago, we realized the laundromats themselves are the key to this whole thing. The margin's way better, the quality control is way better, but laundromats aren't cheap. They're $1 million plus to build, lots of equipment. And so we'd always been approached by others. I love this business. I love this business model. We ever franchise it? We'd always say no. And so in 2020, we really started exploring, do we actually franchise this underlying brick and mortar piece of our business so we can scale faster with partners that are going to care about it just as much as we do. And so started LaundroLab in 2021. It's a laundromat franchise. First 18 months sold 110 plus locations, and we're off to the races at that point.
That's unbelievable, man. I mean, so basically what you guys do, or what you did, was have you had a 1 day turnaround, laundry, dry cleaning, pickup. It's full service, which I think is really, really smart. I think about the time, energy, and effort. Like I forget that I leave stuff at the laundromat, or not the laundromat. I guess the dry cleaner, right? But like I forget I leave stuff there all the time. So this kind of alleviates that, and just the going to and from. So I think it's awesome. I want to talk about, so you have this entrepreneurial spirit and this mind, and you built this company over a period of time. But I want to go back to why you think you didn't like I'm just on your LinkedIn here. I'm just like doing some research. You were a year and a half at EY. Can you pinpoint the reasoning of why you felt like you didn't fit in there or you didn't like it? And then I can get to kind of like the next stages of your story. But I always find that mindset fascinating when I talk to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I know exactly the moment it was. Well, there's two of them, I guess. One was just getting into my first project. Consulting is very project based. Say we're going to go help Wells Fargo or B of A do X, Y, and Z for a 6 month period or sometimes a 3 year period. So my first project, it was just, I remember the work itself being not as fulfilling, slower paced. And so there was two moments that really pushed me over the edge though. One was I'm working 60-hour plus a week. I'm working on the spreadsheet. I'm doing entry level, like, you know, grunt work for most of the time. And so I'm pouring myself into this tool that we're building for the client at the time. And I remember my senior manager pulls me in like a week and a half into this. So I'm like, 80 to 100 plus hours into this tool, this macro spread driven spreadsheet that I'm building, exhilarating stuff. And she pulls me in and she's like, "Hey, Alex, I forgot to tell you, a couple days ago or like a week ago, the client decided we're going to do this tool in Microsoft SharePoint instead, or there was a different approach we're going to take." I was like, "What? What? You knew this a week ago and you didn't tell me? And I've been busting my ass on this thing." And she's like, "Yeah, no, I'm so sorry. It's fine though. We're going to still bill the client for your hours." And I just remember being like, "This is so inefficient. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't feel good that we're billing someone for work that's not going to go use that could have been avoided if you just had sent an email or pulled me into this conversation sooner." It's like that was the first like, I don't know if this corporate thing's for me. The bigger one though, and the final one was my roommate at the time. So I'd bought a condo with some of the money I made from the college business. So I had roommates that worked at EY with me, and I remember I'm good at like systems, thinking like, how does this game work? How do I get the most reward with the least amount of work? Like, why would I work any harder if the upside's capped? I've always kind of thought that way, and maybe again because of my dad. Um, and so I gamed the system at EY of like, what's the least amount of work I have to do to get a 5-star rating? Because that would typically come with a promotion and a 20% raise and all this stuff. So my first full year there, I remember reviews come up. My utilization as a consultant was like 42 hours a week on average. So like I figured that out, which is low. Like most consultants are like 60, 80 hours a week. And so I'm like, I'm low, but I got a 5-star review. It's like less than 3% of my group of peers would get that. So I'm in the top 3%. I get the 20% raise. I'm like, all right, shit, it worked. I gamed this thing, did the least amount of work, got the best outcome. My roommate is, I think, definitely smarter than I am. He worked way harder than I did. He worked like 70 hours average utilization. It's almost twice as much effort than I did. He's just as smart, if not smarter than I am. And he got a 3, which is still like a good review. That's like where they want you to be. You get like a 8% raise. But I saw that happen and I was like, this is not for me. Like I'm capped. It's this dumb little system and game because they're too big of a company to actually reward people for, I think the right type of work. And that's what tipped the whole thing for me was I need to be in a structure where I'm not capped. I can be off the leash and bust my ass 100 hours a week. And the upside is going to reflect that, not this other thing.
Yeah, I mean, Hermosi puts it best to me. Somebody that I like resonate with. I just listen to him. He put like the outsized risk of being an entrepreneur gives you the outsized return. So I mean, you have the downside of that. Your floor is pretty much gone. Like you can look down and like you can make $0, right? And that's like something that you have to navigate. But the effort and energy and time that you went into gaming the system and creating a system that you were able to get the 20% raise, had you been able to do that on the entrepreneurial side with your own thing, that 20% could be 100, could be 200, could be 1,000%. And that's what and I mean, that's like kind of how I visualize it. It's like, yeah, I can go through this. And don't get me wrong, like you can stay in that job, you can make X amount, you can continue to climb up the ladder, but it's going to take you longer. And the harder that you work, you're getting rewarded for it, but at a minimum, in my opinion. And that's where I think things start to shift. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I just like to hear the mindset of what goes behind that. And then I want to ask you about, as you were building LaundroLab and, To You Laundry, like both of them really, like who did you lean on the most in terms of a mentor or somebody in your back pocket, or just like, I don't know the answer to this. So I'm asking candidly, like, because for a college kid, to create a business like this, where the exit that you had, it's like, I'm almost certain you couldn't have done it alone, right? Like, how did you navigate this? Maybe make it granularly, like through the relationships. How much did mentorship and relationships play a factor in you growing and exiting?
Yeah, I think a massive part. Like, I don't think I could have done, this alone or without a support group or without a co-founder is the biggest thing. So my co-founder is someone I've known since 6th grade. We grew up together in Red Wing, Minnesota, a town of 15,000 people. And, people say that cliche of like, don't get into business with friends or family. I think it's totally wrong. And the reason being, I think it's wrong is I think that cliche exists because people do it out of convenience. So if it's like, all right, Corey and I have been friends forever, let's just start something up, buddy, let's do it. But if you and I are the same type of person, like we're both good at sales, we're both good at hustling, like that's the issue. is that we don't have complementary skill sets. That's the main killer, I think, of any business relationship, is you get two of the same people. And so Dan and I, we purposely were attracted to working together because we knew we complement each other. It's like, it's not another consultant type. Dan is more like sales, marketing. I'm way more like strategic problem solving, operations, people, capital raising. And so very different. Like we complement each other perfectly for the type of business we were doing. And it was the best relationship ever. Whenever I wanted to quit, he'd pull me back up. Whenever he wanted to quit, I'd pull him back up. And without that, we probably would have quit. And I think most people quit because they're alone and they get in their own head. It's the same reason you start going to the gym for a month and then you quit, because no one's there to hold you accountable and push you those days and weeks that you want to give up and not do it. So I'd give Dan the biggest shout out. I don't think we would have made it without each other. Number one. And then two, I don't know if it's the Midwest in us or what it may be, but we always were very like humble, down to earth. Like, we know what we don't know. And when we don't know something, we're going to go find the top three most expert people in our immediate perimeter, or vicinity to help coach us. And so people would tell us, I remember investors to this day were like, you guys are sponges. You're just like constantly asking us questions like, well, what about this? Why does pay-per-click marketing work this way? What about when the algorithm changes? Why is this happening? And just constantly learning from people that have already done it.
I think it's interesting that you say this, because I related to my story a little bit with Ryan. Like, I've known him for 13 years. We got into business at the beginning together because we were friends, but he adapted and created an integrator in himself because he knew that I was a visionary. And he's like, in order for us to continue to grow together, I have to fill this role. Even though we're both marketing and sales guys, he adapted to that. And I think that's why 5 to 6 years later, we're still in business together, because it did start out as a friendship. And I agree. People's lives change, their priorities change. And most people will say, just like you said, don't go into business with friends, don't go into partnerships in general. And I totally disagree, but that's only my experience. That's only the experience that I've had. And I couldn't do it without him, kind of like you said, because there are days where you question your existence as a business, maybe not as a person, but like, you're like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And then there are other days where you're like, this is the outsized returns that I was referring to, right? That I was talking. And I think I've never had more of a balancing act of the in between my ears as in the past few months. And I think it's just such a great lesson, because it's like, if you don't stop, that's how you win. That even when you're like, should I stop? You just think about that and then you don't. And I'm sure you've had those moments over and over and over again. I want to ask you about Franzy, because you created a franchising model now that worked in the laundry business, which allowed you to kind of scale the franchising in a way. So talk to us about what Franzy is, how it works. And I know there's a business real estate kind of play here at work. So this is your latest venture. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll give you some of the backstory. I mean, out of the gate, Franzy think of it as the Zillow for buying and selling franchises. So there's historically, people are going to deep, down rabbit hole Google searches. They get approached by business brokers who don't have the right incentives, very misaligned incentives. And so we thought we need to build this democratized, open, transparent way for people to do research, diligence, see what brand is the best fit for Corey. Are these brands available? Can you afford them? Do they fit your risk tolerance? Do they fit your goals? And there isn't a platform that exists today to do that. And there's 4,000 plus franchise brands in the country. No way can a broker or a Google search adequately allow you to vet those and figure out what's the right fit for me. And so that's been our goal with Franzy, is to help people, whether it's their first time business they're buying or the 20th, is to find the best opportunity for your unique set of goals and interests and risk tolerance. So that's what Franzy is. The story behind it, though, is as we were franchising LaundroLab, we saw firsthand as franchisors how broken this search and matchmaking process is. The sales and the relationship is really being built with the brand and the potential franchisee. You're going to work with this group for 10 plus years. It's very different from a real estate transaction where you've got a seller and a buyer, the transaction happens and you're not going to interact probably again, or very unlikely that you're going to. Versus franchising, Corey and Alex, if I'm the franchisor and you're the potential franchisee, we're going to be building this thing together the next 10 years. I'm going to be helping you with training and marketing and operations, and you're going to have amazing ideas about how we could roll out these other programs and pricing and strategies to the whole rest of the system. Like, this is a partnership. And so to me, the business broker kind of gets in the way actually in this situation, versus you and I just having that ongoing dialogue and vetting of one another. to me, this is more matchmaking and a coaching relationship, that the broker should be taking, where we're helping Corey with financing. We're helping you know which questions to ask and how to negotiate, but then staying out of your way when you're building the relationship with the brand. So as a franchisor, we saw this happen. We saw franchise brokers taking a 60% commission on the franchise fee, 60. And so if you think about it, that's immediately sucking value out of Corey's transaction with the brand, and the brand not being able to invest. Let's say you struck a 100K check to get the rights to build 3 franchise locations with us. 60K is immediately out the door that could be used for marketing, training, technology development, et cetera. And so our goal with Franzy is to drastically reduce that fee to keep more value in the system, and us to monetize other areas, helping you with lending, helping you with franchise CPAs, site selection on real estate, et cetera.
So who is the right avatar for someone to use Franzy? Like who's the good fit to become a franchisee, I guess you would say? Because so Ryan and I teach people how to buy real estate, how to get your first and next rental property. Because of what we've done over the past 6 years, I feel so confident that I can help you get in the game. And once you get in the game, things change, right? But I'm wondering, as a real estate investor, and again, I don't need any shiny objects, so I'm going to do my best I can to just listen to what you're saying and then not take action, because I can't go in another direction, even though I'm sure it's going to sound amazing. So, but the reason why I ask is, like, if is this for current business owners? Is this for people that are working W-2 jobs that have a money saved up on the side that are looking for more? Like, who do you think is a good fit to own a franchise?
Yep. So there's 3 very clear avatars or ICPs. It's the franchise curious, which is typically your W-2. They're in the corporate job. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They're far enough in their career that they've saved up enough that they want to try to go buy a business, whether it's existing or a new one, and replace their income with the cash flow from it. So if they're making a couple $100,000 a year, maybe 300-400, how many units of a franchise could I buy, or an existing business could I buy to replace that, but then have my own thing that's mine. I'm in control now. I think with AI coming, this group is getting even more freaked out because their jobs are every day more and more at risk. And this idea of betting on yourself, this bet on yourself economy, I think is going to start to take off. So there's the franchise curious. There's the kind of side hustle, already entrepreneurial. They own short-term rentals. They're doing drop shipping when that was, when there was that wave. They're doing other side hustles, and franchising is just another income stream or diversification. 100% of our franchisees at LaundroLab owned a short-term rental. And
That
so
sounds like that's by chance. Is that a thing, you think?
I think certain short-term rental operators or entrepreneurs look at franchising as a way to, like, hey, it's another area to dump cash. Plus, I can own the real estate. Now I'll own a commercial building and layer an operating company on top of it. Why not a franchise? Because it gives me a shortcut to getting it up and running and open. And so I don't think it's purely by chance. I think there is this theme of people wanting to franchise are naturally a little bit more entrepreneurial than your average person, and people doing short-term rentals are also more entrepreneurial than your average person. And so I think it's just there's overlap in the Venn diagram there on people that do short-term rentals and people that do franchising. It's just a lot of the same characteristics and type of people.
I think there's a misnomer out there, and this is just the stuff I've heard. Like, Cody Sanchez talks about this a lot, right? But that, you buy boring businesses and they work. But I think that there's this like thought that it's like, oh, I'm just going to put cash into a business and then it's just going to run and I'm just going to operate. Like, I'm going to operate from afar and just like, hire one person and then just leave it alone and it's going to print money for me. And I like, you may tell me that I'm wrong here, Alex, but like that sounds like that's not a thing. So I'm curious about like the time commitment. And it seems like if somebody's like, they want to, 2 questions. One, give me an average, maybe it depends on the franchise, at like of dollar figures that I need to have to put into a business like this to buy it. And I'm sure that varies, right? But if you have any kind of range, that'd be cool. And then also like time commitment. It sounds to me like they're looking to leave the W-2 job or looking to like, they need to dedicate like years and really like in order for the business to work, like this has to be their full-time thing. Am I off on that?
No, I think you're right. There is a misnomer, and especially like some of the influencers like really pushing like, oh, it's mailbox money. You just write a check, hit a button, and you're done. Like I think is really misleading, mostly from the time commitment perspective, which is arguably one of the most important parts. Like there is some truth to, hey, if you've built up a a bank of cash or a retirement fund, you can absolutely go buy good businesses that will cash flow. But this idea of it being press a button easy and it's hardly any work is kind of BS. I think no matter what you do, whether it's short-term rentals or a franchise, the first year there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to have to figure out a lot about things that you might not have known about. Hiring people, managing hourly employees. You might have managed a team at Wells Fargo, but it's different, right, than managing 10, 12 to $15 an hour employees. There's different challenges that come with that, and motivations and incentives, to marketing, to operating the actual day-to-day business, to talking to customers. I mean, there's so much learning, that happens. And the franchise definitely accelerates that. But this idea that day one you sign the franchise agreement, boom, it's up and running and you're done is totally, not true. I think after a year, you absolutely can have a GM that takes you out of the day-to-day, working in the business, and allows you to work more on it, working on the business versus in it. Some people, if you have enough capital, though, out of the gate, you can learn the business in a month or two, to be honest, or at least well enough to then hire a GM, but you'll burn through more cash while the business gets profitable. But some people have that ability to do that, and they choose to do that because their time is more valuable, just like any other trade-off in life where it comes down to money and time. And so there are different scenarios where you're either in it for a year, you're hiring someone out of the gate, but you're burning more cash. But no matter what, I think it's at least a year before you're truly fully out of it and working on it and able to leave your full-time, job.
I think that makes total sense. Again, another like Hermosi thing. Maybe it's the two Alexes that I've been listening to, but one I'm talking to, one I'm listening to. But he said like, you might have $1 million business that generates $200,000 in profit, and in order to scale that, you might have to give that $200,000 in profit to your COO or somebody like that in order to scale it even further. So you have this like, well, I have this profit, I'm working X amount of hours in the business, but I have to hire this right person, and someone really good is going to cost you $200,000. I think that's kind of what you're saying in a way. You're like, yeah, you're going to bleed a little bit more cash, but in order to actually grow it, you might have to reinvest. And I think that's kind of business, just how business typically works. I'm curious about, I don't know if you said this, like, did you exit the LaundroLab, or are you still like, you did exit that? And if you did, just give me some background on like your status with where that is.
Yeah. So last year, I basically woke up and realized, hey, this started out as a technology company or marketplace business, an Uber for X type of model where we could scale this pretty quickly with a ton of capital. We pivoted a couple of times into this thing that's asset heavy, physical locations, washers, dryers, trucks. And, we came up on 30 locations, and I just realized, I don't know if I'm the guy that goes from 30 to 300, completely different business. It's not what I, necessarily, wanted to do the next 5 or 10 years either, but it was the right thing for the business. And so we hired a CEO, trained him in. I'm on the board still there, and I sold some of my equity. And so some people, if you go the venture route or capital route, there's what's called primary and secondary capital. Primary is investment into the business. Secondary is where investors will buy up shares of existing shareholders, whether it's founders, employees, or prior investors. And so we had an opportunity, some of the early employees, to sell some of their equity during a large capital raise. We raised 20 million, 5 million of it was secondary. And so some employees were able to take shares off the table, myself included. So small exit, but still most of my equities in the company.
Got it. Okay.
So that's the backstory. I know that you're part of the audience wants to hear like the human part behind all this stuff. And so part of my transition too was I had a series of like family and kind of like personal stuff come up. My dad got sick. My dad had cancer. He's doing way better now, which is good. So he's cancer free
Awesome.
as of today. My wife had this pretty crazy immigration, hurdle pop up where she thought she was a U.S. citizen, has been in the United States since she was 3 years old, voted in multiple presidential elections, was applying to law school, and through that process found out her dad actually didn't properly fill out her immigration paperwork when she was a child. So she overstayed her visa for 20 some years. And so we went down that rabbit hole of getting that squared away. But because she voted in presidential elections, I couldn't do a spousal sponsorship. It's like that path, which everyone was like, oh, why don't you guys just get married? You can sponsor, it'll be great. I was like, it's off the table. So that was like a 4-year, really tough, emotionally thing to figure out. You have this person you love and care about kind of just trapped in this box for a little bit while things are getting figured out. She couldn't go to law school. She couldn't work most corporate jobs during this time. And that thankfully is resolved now too. She's got her green card. She's, you know, back in, able to work and then do what she wants to do in life. And then I ruptured my Achilles.
Oh, dude, that'll put you out if you're. Yeah, I know a good friend who did it playing basketball, and it's not exactly like we have access to the San Antonio Spurs team doctor, right? So you're like 18 months out of just. Dude, that's the number one reason why I don't like go skiing and stuff. Like I golf and I play sports still and I work out like a lot, but I don't go because I'm like, if I'm like hurt for like, I don't know how you did it, but that's rough.
Dude, it was emotional, like mentally, physically, emotionally. So like I share all this to say, I look at business as a competitive sport. Like your head's got to be in the game. And, a lot of our franchisees, our team, our investors, et cetera, were relying on me, and my head was not in the game. So I raised my hand and was like, look, for a number of reasons, this is a good time for us to bring someone else in. I took a 4-month sabbatical. It became very clear that that was the right path and move to make. And so I hired Jason Lepus in to take the reins. And then I've had this idea for Franzy for 3 or 4 years and thought, once I am back in a good spot, I'm going all into this. And it's just like a good natural transition.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on your success. It's pretty cool to see somebody just constantly innovating and changing and growing and creating new companies out of it. And that leads me to my next question about kind of you said it a little bit, but like your why. And like, I'm wondering like what keeps you moving and going forward. I know people that I've talked to that have had $50 million, $100 million exits. And then the next thing they do is they wake up and they go build another company. I've never had I have not had the fortune, or not have I worked hard enough to be able to do that. So I don't know what it's like, but I've had conversations with people. So I'm curious about like what moves you forward and what is the reasoning or the overarching, like what gets you up out of bed every morning to do what you do to continue to press onward. And is there a situation where you're like, oh, I have enough, or I've done enough? And maybe that's the human experience, not actually ever getting there, but I'm curious about it.
Yeah. So initially, I think it started for me as I want to be able to provide half of, what my parents were able to provide me in opportunities, not necessarily money, but I think money allows you to create time and those opportunities. So my relationship with money is like love hate. Like it's good, but it to me it's a means to an end, right? And it's more about what the money can get you than material things or just having more. And so mine was always, I want to be able to provide for my future. And this was as like a 20-year-old. I'm thinking about this family that doesn't even exist. I'm like, I want to be able to be in a spot someday to do the same things my parents were able to do for me. It's like that was the primary force out of the gate. And then as I got into entrepreneurship, seeing jobs you create, communities that we impact. I mean, we built these really nice laundromats in underserved communities, and just seeing how different walks of life live and the struggles that people are going through, and seeing the force that entrepreneurship is and the positive kind of viral effect it can have on local communities, larger communities beyond as you get bigger and bigger. And so I'm going to take something Mark Cuban says, but this resonates with me. It's like the most impactful thing you can do for society is to build a big fucking company. You're going to create a ton of jobs. You're going to impact a lot of customers. You're going to hopefully pay a ton of, in taxes. And ideally the government does the right thing with those taxes and redistributes it to the most effective, areas. But I love that. And like, that's what gets me going now. Is building companies is easily one of the most challenging, fulfilling things that I've ever done. And it's addicting. It's honestly like a big game. It has nothing to do. The outcome could be $1 billion or $100 million or $10 million. It's all the same to me. It's just fun. It's challenging. I know I'm impacting people, and the bigger I do it, the more, the bigger the impact. And that's what it's become for me. Is like, I know that the money will come and I'll be able to take care of my family. It's way more now about this, like, more meta, bigger picture thinking of how do I leave my mark and impact the most people possible.
Yeah. They say that like money just amplifies who you are as a person. So whether you're a good person or you're not a good person, money will then bring that'll make you bigger in that sense. So I think that, and there's a decent amount of people that listen to our podcast, and I'm hoping that more and more people listen to it, but I have had very, very few interactions with high level entrepreneurs and them not being good people on the inside. And I think that there's I said misnomer earlier in the show, but there's a misconception that this wealth brings, like money is the root of all evil, and like these are greedy people. And I just think that until you play in that sphere, until you meet people like this, you realize that those are oftentimes the people that are looking to give back the most, especially when you've made it already. And then you realize you can actually have time to think about the purpose. Like even having time to think about your why is a luxury, in my opinion, because you're not desperately thinking about how to put food on the table. So you get to this status where you like think about, oh, well, what's the purpose of all this? And like, can I give back, and can I create more jobs? And then seeing those people under you thrive, to me, seems like just a beautiful thing. So I think it's awesome. I'm really, it's just cool to talk to somebody who's been through the corporate life, the entrepreneurial life, building, exiting. I guess my question for you, Alex, is then what's next? Like, sounds like Franzy's like that, that's what you're working on full time, right? But like, what is the goal with it? Where do you want to get to? What does the next 1 to 3 years look like?
Yeah, so our vision and our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal is how do we help enable the next million entrepreneurs? That's big, right? Like, it's like that many entrepreneurs will create so many jobs, so much financial impact, social impact. And so I like the idea of enabling others to go have a similar experience to what I had, whether it's a complete from scratch venture or a franchise. It's still entrepreneurial. It's still going to be challenging. I mean, I'm opening franchise locations as a franchisee. It's a golf simulator called Another Nine. Got to give them a shout out quick. Um, because I like it, it's a fun business. It's another challenge for me. It's still entrepreneurial, and I'm doing that. So it doesn't have to be this tech company or this novel idea that's going to change the universe. I just like when people can get their hands dirty and solve problems, like, in a business sense, in a business setting, and the change it has on you as a person, the impact it has on you as a person, the growth it has on you as a person. That's my goal with Franzy, is create this platform that allows for that to happen a million times over.
Well, you got my gears turning when you mentioned golf. As you can maybe see my hat, and I'm going to Bandon Dunes in it actually this weekend. So I'm curious about the golf simulator because so in Philadelphia we have a couple, but like Five Iron is big. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard of Five Iron. Yeah, and they're in New York, they're in Philly. I don't know where else they are, but like I was always wondering business wise how the model works and how they make money. It's a beautiful space, and it seems to me like it's really expensive to like maintain and run, but I could be wrong. So tell me a little bit about the golf simulator and like how that business operates, and just out of genuine like I'd want to know.
Yeah, so I mean, I looked at, there's a bunch of them. There's T-Box, which is like for your hardcore golfers. There's like a gym component to it, a membership model. There's the Five Irons. There's X Golf, where it's more of like an entertainment concept, where there's food and bev
Like
and
Top Golf too. Yeah. Well, Top Golf's
yeah,
huge. That's outside, right? But yeah.
yep. But there's
Yeah.
some of these golf simulator franchises that have like this entertainment component. What I like about the guys behind Another Nine is, one, they're very smart, operators. One of them was the VP of product that shipped before it got bought by Target for 650 million.
Wow.
It's like a product guy behind it. And what I like about it is it's private bays, so you can go in and practice on your own with a coach, or taking a lesson from a pro, or it can be you and two or three buddies going in and playing Pebble Beach for an hour and a half. But it's private bays, it's BYOB, so there's no food and bev, there's no employees. There's a person that cleans the bays each day, but there's no actual full-time employees. And so it's the first franchise concept that I've found that truly is more on that side of passive. When you hear people say, "Oh, mailbox money," everything we just talked about, this is the closest one I've seen to it being truly passive. For example, I'm in Charlotte. I'm opening them in Minnesota. I'm not even in the same state. And I'm able to manage the GC, fly up there, do site tours and stuff in this early days. But once it gets up and running, I have an Airbnb in Wisconsin too. And it's like I can be here doing those types of things. And this feels more in that category than it is, all right, you've got a staff of 15 and inventory and all this other stuff. So that's what I like about it, is it's private bays, lower cost to build out as a result, no food and bev, no employees, and the cost to break even, you only need 10% occupancy to break even.
Wow.
Um, and so even if there's a recession, I think, hey, this is the low cost provider because we don't have all the other frills and other stuff in it. And you put these in a strip center backed up behind a dual income household neighborhood where dad wants to sneak away after the kids have gone down to play around. And um, it's a lot of that kind of customer, dual income household, 150K plus in household income.
Um, So I'm curious if you see this. Are golf simulators? This is just logic coming into play here. Golf simulators way more popular in Northeast Minnesota, like places where in Florida it's like I'm just playing golf all year round outside. Are there? Is that a trend? I just thought of it, but I was curious. Is that what you see?
So the reason, I mean, one, I'm from there, but two, it's yeah, our thought is, hey, winter, 6 months, 7 months out of the year. But with that comes a lot more competition. So like there's a ton of these already open in Minnesota. Our bet is that, hey, we're in, areas that there aren't any yet, lower cost, less occupancy to break even, and none of the other like food and bev entertainment piece, which I think some people are looking for. They just want to go hit balls and the driving range is packed or closed because it's Minnesota. I do think these will work well in the South, just out of anecdotal experience. Like I've gone to a couple in Charlotte in the middle of summer and they're packed still. They're booked out like a week or two. And my hunch is that $40 to play with a couple buddies, so $10 a piece is a lot cheaper than an $80 round outside, plus the time commitment. So 5 hours probably by the time you get there, and maybe even six by the time you get there, change, go play the round, versus an hour, hour and a half, for a fraction of the price, indoors, not sweating. It's AC. You can bring your own drinks and stuff, and
Yeah,
just different experience.
100%. I love it. So I want to ask you, because you mentioned about having a short-term rental in Wisconsin. I'm curious, has your real estate portfolio been a product of like the last few years and you growing that as like a wealth preservation tactic to trying to like, the money that you make as an investment strategy, or have you been building that kind of as an active income thing all along? I've learned that Ryan and I are building our wealth through real estate, but like we started doing it that way and then realized, well, this is going to take a long time. Like we're going to be really, really, really happy as a 26-year-old when we're 40. Like it's going to be incredible, but it takes a long time to build up, whether it's long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals. But I'm curious on your strategy and what your portfolio looks like.
Yeah, so I think having a dad that was a financial advisor is like you hear the word diversification and like portfolio balancing and things like that as you grow up. And for me, it's always have this core thing that I know I'm good at that I want to go deeper on, and that's tech startups, being that type of entrepreneur. But then, of course, around it, I want to surround myself with exposure to real estate, crypto, equities, private lending, and private debt. And so the real estate piece was something I've always wanted to do so I could learn it. I mean, I like learning about new things. And again, I see all these other entrepreneurs that have this as just another income stream and another way to diversify what they're already doing. Like other founder types, like, tech founders like myself doing it, seeing all the franchisees, again, 100% of them having short-term rentals. So part of it was piqued interest from that and just hearing from others having success doing it. And then this one in Wisconsin is really like an emotional driver. Our family has a cabin in Hayward, Wisconsin. Grandparents bought it 70 years ago. And a place came available on that same lake about a year or two ago. And me and my brothers were like, we need to get it. Let's get it for now to keep it in the family, but then let's rent it out and spruce it up and make it a short-term rental. And it's been a blast. I mean, we've knocked it out of the park. It's booked most weeks throughout the year, and it's doing really well for us. But we've also learned a ton and have this legacy type of property now that's important beyond just the cash flow.
I love the short-term rental game for that exact aspect. I think that more people can get into that space if they lower their expectations on the monthly cash flow that they're going to receive, but then increase your expectations on the lifestyle play and how much it's going to impact their family down the line and the resale value. And especially because if you're buying vacation rentals, you're likely buying in an area that has the chance to appreciate, and you have this win-win-win, but you have to wait 6 to 8 years. You can't just think about like, oh, I'm going to put some photos up from my iPhone and, press the button and I'm going to make thousands of dollars in cash flow per month. I have a property in a short-term rental that I use in Tampa, Florida, and it cash flows. It definitely cash flows. It's not $5,000 a month, but I get to go down a couple times a year. I can send my parents down there. And it's like one of the things that I just like, I wanted to have a Northeast connection because I'm going to probably stay here and raise a family, but then be able to escape and get to the warm weather when I wanted to. And I think if more people looked at it like that, like this is a time for you to get your family together. And like, isn't that what this whole thing's about anyway? Like, isn't that the whole point? So I love short-term rentals for that aspect, but I don't want people to, there's a lot of people out there like Airbnb is dead. And I totally disagree, but it's like, what is your Like, how do you go into it, and what are you thinking about when you get into it? And it sounds like you're approaching it the right way. So that's pretty
There's
cool.
some cool like savvy tax stuff you can do too. Like we did a cost segregation study, and because we're the ones doing all the bookings and communication, we can classify it as active income versus passive and take write-offs. And there's a whole kind of tax advantage layer there if you're structuring it and doing it the right way.
Yeah, if you're materially participating as like a real estate full-time real estate, basically. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on
It's a
on
full, yeah, it's like something
real
real
estate
estate
professionals.
professional.
Yeah, real
But
estate
there's even a
professionals.
loophole. There's a loophole even beyond that. If it's for short-term rentals and your stays are less than, I think it's on average 5 days or something, there's a loophole that you don't have to be a full-time real estate professional and still get treated as active versus passive.
Yeah, which is massive if you're making a bunch of money and you're able to do a cost seg and write a bunch off, and you can save a ton of money. So there you go. I mean, you're already ahead of the game there. Last question for me, Alex. We got a little bit of inside in between the ears, but this question I think is I always try to ask myself this like once a year to see if it changes. I'm curious about if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self, wet behind the ears, hungry, clearly, because you were trying to buy a laundry business at that age, which most people are not doing. But if you had to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him advice, knowing what you know now about life, relationships, hardships with family, the world, business, what advice would you give him?
That's a really good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just like pick the right people, which is like it's hard to describe exactly what that means, but I think just being a lot more critical of who you work with and who you surround yourself with, because I've seen one person make all the difference in the positive lens. Getting that right person at the right time has made what we are fully. Not my own self or my own work, but that one person unlocking part of the business or whatever it was that we were doing. On the other side of the coin, I've seen one person just destroy and erode so much value and so much effort from 7 other people. That one person can ruin it for a larger team or a growing team as well. And so I think just being a lot more particular and picky about how you interview people, how you vet them, and who you surround yourself with, because it drastically will shape your story and what the ending of that story is.
I've heard this a number of times that negative people or negative reactions or negative reviews are 10 times, they last 10 times longer in someone's brain, in a customer's brain, in a colleague's brain than positive people and positive reactions. So it's almost like, yes, surround yourself with positive people, but avoid the negative ones like the plague, because those are the things that like you have the outsized negativity that comes along with it, and it's hard to escape it. So I think it's a great answer. I've
It's this
said
whole
this.
like it's like this. Sorry, what you just made me think about it. Disney has, I forget what it's called. It's called like the happiness rule or something. Disney says for every one bad experience, they need guests to have 34 good experiences to make up for it.
Yeah.
34. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and Disney's like the king of they're the king of good experiences too, right? So it's just like that, if you look at a Google review or you look at somebody that has 300 reviews, even if they have 4.9, some people will go see what the 1 stars say, and then you try to determine, it's the same thing like the Airbnb algorithm. Like I have, my property is 4.85, and there's that one person that left this review because they were having a bad day. It's like, that's the one that sticks in my mind, not the 85 5-star reviews. And I think that's, that goes for business, for people around you. I've said it a number of times in the podcast, but like I've learned more recently that people decide between the destination and the journey. And like, to me, it's really just about the company that you go along with. Like it's because it's all going to happen regardless, and you might as well have fun and enjoy the people around you. So I think it was a great answer, man. This has been a pleasure. I just to get to know you, your story, learn about what, how you think. And that's kind of what we like to do in this podcast, is get a little bit deeper. So if people want to learn more about you, Alex, they want to potentially learn about Franzy, what that company looks like. Maybe there's people that are listening that want to invest. Maybe there's people that are listening that are interested in the franchise model for themselves. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or your team?
Yeah, so if you're interested in exploring franchise ownership, or if you're a franchisor wanting to sell units, check out franzy.com, franzy.com. If you just have questions about entrepreneurship, technology companies, franchising, feel free to shoot me an email. It's alex@franzy.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Alex, my long last name, Smereczniak, Smereczniak. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and happy to be a resource for anyone out there.
Smereczniak. I'm glad you said it without me trying to butcher it. So that's not where I was going to go with it. So thank you, Alex Smereczniak. I appreciate your time, man. This has been awesome to get to know you. And thanks for taking time out of your day to share some of the knowledge you have with our listeners.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me. And if you ever find yourself down in Charlotte, North Carolina, let me know and we can chop it up in person.
Will do, man. Thank you.